Everyone, what is going on? What is going on? Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Curtis Brooks, and this is That Man Show. I am the host and executive coach, helping high achieving men master the art of integrated. All right, guys. Yeah. All right, guys. I apologize there. Having an issue with LinkedIn for some reason. I'm not able to broadcast there. But once again, welcome to the broadcast. This is That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I'm your host and executive coach, helping high achieving men master the art of integrated leadership and authentic masculine presence. We've got a great show for you. We are talking about one of those days. Our series called Conversations That Heal. The premiere of this series is I'm Carrying a Burden. So, guys, I got a couple of issues that I'm having to work around, so bear with me. I'm actually doing some things a little bit different here. My computer went out on me, so I didn't want to go ahead and cancel this broadcast. So I do apologize for that. Not sure why it's not showing up on LinkedIn. But again, we do have a great conversation. Again, this is the premiere of Conversations That Heal, a five-part series called Conversations That Heal. And the beginning of that series is Help, I'm Carrying a Burden. So we're speaking primarily to men in this conversation, and as well as the women who love us as men. And this conversation for me was geared towards, or directed, or prompted, I should say, in lieu of some situations that had taken place recently in the news. And it just kind of provoked me so. And I just wanted to hop online and just have a conversation for the men, about the men, and speak to the men. Okay. So bear with me here. Get some notes here. Hey, Preston over in Substack. Thank you for joining, man. Appreciate you. Haven't seen you in a while, man. Hope that you're doing well. We're in Substack. I promise you guys, this was all together, and life happens. Life happens, and so we definitely have to factor that in. So we're talking about Conversations That Heal. Again, the premiere of this conversation is Help, I'm Carrying a Burden. Commonly, we as men, we are carrying major burdens, and oftentimes it's for us as men, it's hard for us to articulate that to our spouses, our significant other, or just society as a whole. Because I've talked about this before in the past, where a lot of times for us as men, even in the different shows that we may see on television, it often portray men as playing the passive role. The man doesn't know what he's talking about, and it needs there needs to be a woman or someone else, or even to a point of a child or an animal that shows us how to show up in the right way. And so this is often one of the challenges that we deal with, is that I think in some cases we are made to feel invisible. And contrary to what popular belief is, that, you hear a lot of women talking about the patriarchy. And for some of us as men, we don't get to play a part in that patriarchy. We don't make the rules. And in fact, it can feel like the rules are in fact against us. And so That is, in most cases, not the situation for us as men, especially black and brown men. And commonly, the patriarchy makes up an elite group of men, primarily men. Hey, William, thank you for joining, brother, over on Substack. Primarily, the patriarchy makes up an elite group of men. And in most cases, many of us as black and brown men, we don't know, or black and brown people, we don't know them. But nevertheless, it's often easier to just toss us all in that one pool and say the patriarchy, it's men, 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 men. But the reality is that black and brown men across the board are dealing with stuff. And this absolutely does include other men in different categories, such as white men. They're also dealing with stuff as well. Men as a whole are dealing with stuff, and to include our counterparts. And I said earlier is that the patriarchy makes up just a very few men, a group of men, or the system is, or for all the intents and purposes, the system. And in most of us as black and brown men, we're not a part of that system. But as I stated earlier, it is oftentimes easier to just put us all in one box and say it's a patriarchy, it's the men. And if you listen to my broadcasts and different times, you hear me talk about the system and just the different things that were created purposely to have us at odds with each other. And I'm going to give you some stats, and they're very alarming stats, to be honest. One says, give me a second here. It says about 20% of American men, roughly 24.6 million individuals experience mental health conditions each year, and about 10% are dealing with depression or specifically anxiety. And I know that's a lot easier for me to give you those stats, and so you kind of have an idea. You can wrap your mind around exactly how big it is. But it also even goes on to say that it's most cases bigger than that, because this is what's reported. Okay, and so what's underreported, they say that there is a 6% of adult males who are dealing with the mental issues, to include anxiety. 6% of the males are not reporting as well. So that, I don't know what the number represents in the way of an actual number, but I would reckon to say that it's probably somewhere in the millions. So that's another several million on top of the 24.6 million that's been reported. Okay. Oftentimes the issue is with how society has told us on how we need to show up as men, and how we have become accustomed on showing up in life in regards to men don't cry. It's one of the bigger issues. Men don't share their emotions, and some men do and some men don't. But nevertheless, widely as it's understood, a large amount of us as men don't show our emotions. And because we don't show our emotions, it's highly likely that we're going to say that, hey, I have an issue. I'm not feeling my best. I need to talk with someone. I need to hire a coach, or whatever the case might be. I need to see a therapist. I need to see a counselor. So it's highly likely that if we're not talking or expressing ourselves in some kind of way, that we are going to be dealing with, we're not going to be reporting these certain things to the professionals out there. And so naturally, we are carrying a major load that oftentimes that we have difficult times articulating what we're going through. And obviously, it's not because we don't talk. It's that a lot of times for us as men, we have not we have not aligned ourselves with our emotions. And because we have not aligned ourselves with our emotions, again, it becomes difficult to articulate those things in regards to how we're feeling, what we're going through. And that is one of the bigger problems. A quick story here. Years ago, I used to work as a flight dispatcher. And one of the things that we had to do as a flight dispatcher, oftentimes you might hear people say, "Oh, they're like the they use a different term. They're like the pilots on the ground." You might hear that, or the controllers on the ground. But we would work for specific individual airlines. And so in this situation, I was working as a flight dispatcher. And one of the things that we had to understand was the maximum load for the aircraft. Each of the aircraft, which in our fleet of aircrafts, had a maximum load capacity. And that maximum load capacity, you could fly out at full capacity to include passengers and luggage and mail and all the other things that they may have carried. You could fly out at capacity at certain times, and not necessarily a schedule, but you had to be aware of the capacity of the aircraft, what it could handle and what it could not handle. And so as far as the understanding for us as flight dispatchers, it was very important for us to know the load on that aircraft, or what that load the load the aircraft had to bear during its flight. So to understand that the flight was going out full. A lot of stuff going on here. To understand that the flights are going out full. Unfortunately, guys, I'm not sure why the comments are off on Facebook here. I'm just kind of having a wild day here, but nevertheless, thank you, Brother Wayne, over on Facebook. I apologize that the comments are off. I'm not sure how to get them back on there, but again, as the flight dispatchers, we absolutely had to be aware of that the flight went out full at 1 o'clock. The flight needs to come back not as full. And so it was important for us to pay attention to the load, the capacity of that aircraft. And here's the reason why. And this also, what I'm sharing with you will also absolutely tie into us as people. Because what happens oftentimes for us, especially with men and just people in general, it really does apply to women as well, not just men, but we are all carrying different loads here. But nevertheless, in the situation with the aircraft, we had to watch what the load was, be mindful of the weight, because at some point, even if the aircraft could handle 200,000 pounds, just because it can handle 200,000 pounds of load, of maximum load capacity, doesn't mean that you fly it out full capacity all the time. And so we had to vary the load. Sometimes the aircraft would go out with just half of a load, just 100,000 capacity, sometimes 20,000 capacity. But we had to vary that load because the framing of the aircraft in which the aircraft was built, sure, it could handle the load, but at some point, if you keep maximizing the load capacity for the aircraft, you're going to break it. The aircraft will be permanently out of order, broken. And it is the same with us as people, that there's a lot that we can handle as people. There's a lot that we can understand, a lot that we can take on. But if we continue to fly at capacity, even for us as people, we break. And for us as men, oftentimes we are flying at capacity. We are oftentimes flying at capacity. And now this in no way negates what women are going through. talking about men, we're often flying at capacity. And because we are flying at capacity, oftentimes we don't know how to say, hey, this load is too heavy. And unfortunately, the results can be depression, can be anxiety, and worse, it could be us offing ourselves. So we're going to just have a conversation. If you are not able to, I did mention earlier, I'm on YouTube at Men's Life Coaching over on YouTube. If you can't see me there, also over on Substack here, and my personal page on Facebook. So if you're not able to see me there on LinkedIn, I do apologize. So we're going to dive more into this conversation in regards to, what exactly that is that we're going through. And I want for you as a man, if you're listening, tuning in, I want for you as a man to be honest with yourself, because one of the things that I found out in doing this work here, doing the personal work, is that the more that we are honest with ourselves, the more we can find that the weight is coming off. Though it helps to shed this weight. It helps to shed this burden. All too often, we as men, we can find ourselves just lying to ourselves. Looking in the mirror and not being able to articulate what we see, and so we walk away looking at the same thing. We walk away doing the same thing. And it makes it difficult for us to come in and take our rightful places. And I was reluctant to take this conversation in certain areas, but I'm going to jump out there and do so because I think the challenge that we're dealing with as men is that many of us, some of us believe in God, and some of us don't, and that's okay. You obviously will have you can make your own decision, and I'm not here to convert anyone to whatever faith that you're grounded in, or whatever your belief system is, your value system is. That's what they are. But I do want to express this, that oftentimes what we're dealing with, again, whether you want to believe it or not, the reality of it is, just because you don't believe it does not mean that it does not exist. And so what is happening is that we are in a spiritual battle. And I'm just going to jump out there and say that. We are in a spiritual battle. And so what happens is that for us as people in general, but again, we're talking about men, most of us are accustomed to dealing with life as we know it in this sensory realm. The five senses: sight, touch, see, hearing, smell, and I think, again, there's five of them. And that's what we're familiar with. And all too often, we find ourselves trying to handle life through that sensory realm, through that primary realm. And that's what I'll call it from here moving forward. We can find ourselves dealing with that primary realm, okay? And because we're dealing with that primary realm, we are unattached from the spiritual realm. We're not attached or unattached to what exactly is happening. We can't, or have a difficult time wrapping our minds to what exactly is happening, because we're unattached to the spiritual realm. And maybe unattached is not the right word, because I believe that we're all attached to it, but because many of us are so grounded, this is what we know, because we don't believe. I'll say that for the third time, because we don't believe, it can be difficult to see the things and actually see and hear what's taking place from a spiritual realm. And so what happens is that because we're dealing with life as we know it, the challenges, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of life, the valleys, the highs and lows, because we're dealing with those areas from this primary sensory realm, we're limited in our understanding. We're limited in our fight in order to challenge what we know. We're limited. And because we're limited in that space, we begin to carry the load, much like I was giving you an example earlier of the aircraft. We begin to carry a load at full capacity because we're limited in our understanding from the spiritual realm. And I'm not here to convince you. That's not my job. I'm here to tell you what you're dealing with. And this is a fact. This is the truth. Oftentimes I don't go here, but I was so moved by the earlier situations that I had seen on TV, the unfortunate situations where men had offed their wives. And that could be for various different reasons. But I'm here to let you know that what many of us as men, hey, Coach Kerry, thank you for joining over here on Substack. Coach Kerry, this is the second week I've had some issues with LinkedIn. Matter of fact, I tested earlier over on LinkedIn, and it actually worked. I tested from my software here on my computer, and it actually worked. I went live and then I deleted it, so it was working. And once when I started the show, it did not go live on the show. So thank you for making me aware of that, and also showing up here over on Substack. So I appreciate that. So as I was saying moments ago, is that because we're so conditioned, people in general, but again, we're speaking primarily to men, because we're so accustomed to dealing with the primary, this primary focus, again, from the sensory realms. That is what we know. And every last one of us are spiritual. Every last one of us were birthed out of spirit. Again, I'm not here to challenge you what you believe. I'm telling you what is the truth, what is the facts. It doesn't matter. Again, I'm just going to say that, just be emphatic on that. It doesn't matter. The reality of it is that we are spiritual beings, and whether you've come to a consensus of, oh, I just don't believe that stuff, that's neither here or there. But the reality of it is that because we're operating in this primary realm here, this primary state, again being the five senses that I talked about earlier, because we're operating in that realm, we're unaware of the things that are taking place spiritually, and we are at maximum capacity of operating, being able to handle situations, or being able to handle life as it shows up, as life or the situations are presented to us, because this capacity, this realm here is at capacity, much like I shared with you earlier in regards to the aircraft being able to handle at maximum capacity, being able to handle 2,000 pounds of just passengers or luggage or whatever the case might be. But just because you can handle all that doesn't mean that you fly the aircraft at maximum capacity, much like for us as human beings, as men. Just because we can handle it does not mean that you're fine, that you're doing life, walking around and doing life at maximum capacity. Because if you're not in this space called, if you're relegated to this space called that primary state or primary realm, you're at capacity. It's no wonder why men are being crushed under the pressure, because this realm here, that sensory realm, was not equipped for the spiritual battle that is taking place. And here's what I mean by this spiritual battle, and I'll just kind of go into depth on that, is that when we are pulled away from the very essence, the very source of who we are, and again, regardless of what you might believe, that's neither here nor there. I'm not here to challenge you on that. But there is a source. Some might call it God. Some might call it the universe. Some might call it a higher being, whatever the case might be. And with the different names doesn't mean that all the names are the same. And I'm not trying to challenge you on that either. I'm just saying to you, what's happening on a deeper level is that we are at capacity. People in general, men to include men, we are at capacity trying to handle things from a primary realm, if you will, from the five senses. We are at capacity. And the body is breaking down. The body is taking on burdens that it was not intended to take on. The body is in utter chaos. Because I at the beginning, I didn't do my full introduction. I was just kind of, it's kind of hectic in the very beginning here because my wife came in late here. But what I wanted to share with you is that let's see here. What I wanted to share with you is that we are all born under the order of controlled chaos. And it all leads back to relationships. This is what I wrote earlier. The source of our creation is God. That's for every last one of us. Whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But because you don't believe, you can't access this information. Because you don't believe, you can't access this information or access what's taken place from a spiritual, from a much deeper realm, from a much deeper place. You can't access this area. And again, because you don't believe does not mean it doesn't exist, but because it is taking place, it is happening. We're being pulled, as I mentioned earlier, the controlled chaos under the order of controlled chaos. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. It's orderly, done in an orderly fashion, but yet it's created in a way to be chaos. And when it's chaos, not only is it chaos taking place on the outside, it's disrupting our spirit. It's disrupting who we are as human beings, the internal workings of our soul. It's pressure. I went on also to write that everything is under pressure to become. The systems and networks have indoctrinated all of us. I know this is probably kind of heavy for a Thursday, but the reality of it is that this is what has taken place. And as I stated earlier, that primary realm is at capacity. The distractions that have showed up in life, the chaos that has been presented to us, it's a shock to the system. And if we've been under this chaos, under this pressure for an extended period of time, much like I was giving to you, sharing with you an example of the aircraft, being able to handle the maximum weight of 200,000 pounds and perhaps more, depending on the size of the aircraft, being able to handle all of that weight. But just because you can handle all the weight does not mean that you're flying at maximum capacity all the time. And when you do, you will eventually break your aircraft. Much like with our bodies begin to break down. Our bodies begin to break down from from the weight of the stuff, from the weight of the pressure. And when our bodies break down, our bodies are exhausting all of these natural vitamins that we will get from our food. All the natural things that we might get from water have been removed from water. A lot of the natural things that we get from vegetables have been removed from vegetables as well. Now, I'm not trying to frighten you, but I want you to understand that me, and just the world, we have been moved away. The bigger the distractions, the farther away we move away from our source. And when we move away from the source, we are detached from the all-knowing understanding of God, the all-knowing power, the unlimited source of guidance. And I know that some of you you're going to take you're going to take this information, do what you need to do with this information, or do nothing with it. And that's obviously to your prerogative. But I just wanted to come on and share this conversation in regards to what we as men are dealing with. The missing component is your spiritual life, a connected life to your source. All of the things, not all of the things, but a good part of the things in this life have shown up to, in fact, draw us away from the very source of that is all knowing, to draw us away from the source of who God is. It's no wonder that men and women in the course of relationships and marriage, it's no wonder that men and women are just, even in relationships and marriage, are at their wits' end, fighting and arguing all the time. Pitting the men against the women, pitting the women against the men. It has been done purposely, ladies and gentlemen. It has been done purposely. And when you can understand it on a deeper level, you were not intended to go through all this confusion. But it's done purposely to keep us at odds with each other, to keep you at odds and not knowing the God source on the inside. And not understanding that God is not so much out there as he is on the inside. But the challenge is that oftentimes that many of you can't get access to that God. Because if you don't believe, you don't believe. What are you going to open up if you don't believe? What questions would you have if you don't believe? In most cases, if you don't believe, you're going to do away with certain questions. You're not even going to entertain certain thoughts, let alone certain questions, if you don't believe. But when you do believe, understanding that there is a higher power, there's a God, there's a someone higher than you and I that's running this thing called life. And yet there are the perpetrators who want to keep us enslaved, so that you're stuck building their house, that you're stuck making bricks for the slave master. And yet you've been called to be free. But you've got to tap into that sixth sense, so to speak. You have to be prepared to tap into that spiritual space in order to free yourself and eventually free others. And this obviously is not only just for the men, it's for the women too. Because what's happening is that we become a slave to these five senses. We become a slave to these five senses. And this place is full. We're at capacity now. And because we're at capacity, we then will have a tendency in most cases to shrink back because the load is too heavy. Be it depression, anxiety, or some kind of ailment, because as I mentioned earlier, because the load is so heavy, the pressure of the load begins to break the body down. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I would even extend this to say that it causes disease in the body. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, but I feel comfortable in saying that because of the weight that many of us are carrying. And it is unfortunate that for us as men, many of us won't say anything until it's too late. It's not that we can't turn it around, but at some point it can get to a place where, do I even want to turn it around? Do I even care to turn it around? Do I even care to put the effort to turn it around? Put in the effort to turn it around. Hey, Linda, thank you for joining me here on Substack. I appreciate it. So it can become a serious challenge, again, for us as men, when you've been dealing with the load for so long. The systems start to shut down. The body starts to expend itself in regards to burn off certain calories, or not calories, but burn off certain vitamins that you should be getting in food. And then you're not getting those things in food. The food is empty. It has absolutely no value to it other than the calories. And when the food is empty, the body can't nourish itself. When the water supply, one of the things that me and my brother Wayne often talk about, I think he's watching over on Facebook, he and I often talk about is just how different things are processed. And the example that I often use is salt. Salt is usually processed. Salt is obviously a natural element. But when they're done with salt and all the processes that they take salt through, it's not natural anymore. This is a salt that causes harm to our body. The salt that they put in different foods, but it's commonly known as sea salt. But once they've done processing it, they add iodine to it, but it has no other value other than the iodine that they add to it. And I'm bringing that up because, again, this is commonly what's done in life. They take out the vitamins, take out the natural things that are needed. And we find ourselves, again, where the body needs to process certain things. And when it comes time to process those certain things, like the body needs magnesium. The body needs salt, but not the salt that's processed. It needs natural salt. The body is made up of the elements of the earth. The stars, you look in the sky, the body is made up of the stars. All the elements that you find in stars, you find in this magnificent body of ours. And when we're not taking care of this body from a space of what we're eating the proper foods, what we're drinking, making sure we're drinking water to hydrate our bodies, even for water. Water has no value oftentimes. I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm simply saying in all of this is that when we are pulled away from our very source of who we are, we'll find ourselves building out someone else's dreams, so to speak. The very source, the very God that exists for our life, in our lives, is on the inside. And when we begin to recognize that, we can begin to have communication with God. Because as it stands right now, we are in this space trying to build communication off a relationship that's, in most cases, that's not authentic. And because we're building those inauthentic relationships, it's something that, for our own system, that says, that's not it. Something's missing. Something's missing. Have you ever read something and read a story or something, like someone may be giving their account of what happened on a situation, and you read the story, you said, I read the story, but something's not right. Something's missing. And I would propose that is the position for many of us, walking through life, trying to do life to the best of our ability. And we're saying to ourselves, something's missing. Something's not just right. And what's missing is that relationship. That relationship that God wants you to have with him. He's not out there. He's not up in the sky. He's within each of us. And this is regardless of what your color is or the social constructs that man has put together. His motive is to keep us away from that source, to keep us distracted so that you don't know your source. What you know is how you feel according to that primary realm. And I call it that primary realm, or that primary state, but it's no different from the animals. And obviously I know that we're animals as well. But what happens is, because we are animals, we find ourselves reactive rather than proactive. And when we put together, come back to that middle, come back to the source, get ourselves reacquainted with who we are from the very beginning, we can be proactive, more intuitive than someone waiting for the professionals or the doctor to tell you what you need to do. And as long as we are without making a connection, as long as we're without making that connection with the source, and I'm not saying that you make the connection with the source, God's going to give you a brand new car, He's going to give you a brand new house. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to be connected to the source, because at some point, the connection to the source is an opportunity for you and I to offload this burden that we've been carrying. That's why the source is so important. One of the many reasons why the source is so important, because you can offload the burden that you and I have been carrying. You can offload the weight, because up until up until we've been flying at maximum capacity with limited understanding, drawn away from the very thing that God has created with on the inside of us that can bear the weight. We've been pulled in so many different directions, whether it be through entertainment, whether it be through television. And don't get me wrong, I watch TV, watch some great shows on television as well. But nevertheless, we can find ourselves still paying homage to the wrong source. And guess what happens? When life shows up and we're in a place where we've been paying homage to the wrong source for so long, it can absolutely be very difficult to activate that source. And this is where we say, well, perhaps at times we can say, well, it felt like God failed me. It felt like God didn't show up. But in fact, He's never left you. He's never left you. He was always here. But you've been drawn away from Him. You and I both, all of us, the entire world has been drawn away from Him. That has been the goal, to draw us away from Him, so we no longer depend on Him as a source, but depend on that which they have created out there, that which we could see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. That's what our dependency is on. And we're trying to offload our stuff onto that primary space, or that those five senses there. And those things cannot bear the weight. And so what happens? The body breaks down. And when the body breaks down, when we break down mentally first, and when we break down mentally, we also break down from a space of being deficient. Deficiency takes place. We're no longer being able to be efficient in certain areas. And so there's a deficiency that begins to take place because the mind begins to break down. And when the mind begins to break down, the body also will fall in line with that, in accordance with the mind breaking down. And you have deficiencies, and from deficiencies, I should say, and then from the deficiencies, the body is then riddled with disease. And disease is diseasement, a misalignment for the systems, be it your nervous system, your endocrine system, and all the other systems. I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything like that, but the body begins to break down because of its deficiencies. And when the body breaks down, obviously the mind has gone, and the mind begins to try to take on different thoughts. It begins to take on different thoughts that are now more spiritual, because you're now opening the door. You're opening the door to conversations that you were no longer at a time not privy to for all the right reasons. But when the mind breaks down, it starts hearing things from a lower realm of conversations that ideally in your right state of mind, when you are healthy, there are certain conversations that you're not in a line with. There's levels to this thing. But when the mind begins to break down and the body becomes deficient in its vitamins and its minerals and things of that nature, disease begins to set in on the body. And from a spiritual perspective, we can find ourselves opening, unintentionally as it may be, we can find ourselves opening up doors that were not supposed to be opened, because the mind is breaking. The mind is breaking. The body is breaking down. And so naturally, all of those things on that low-hanging fruit, you find the depression, you find the anxiety, and you find the thoughts of offing ourselves. It is absolutely unfortunate, but it is also imperative for us to understand this. And I've tried to put this together in the most simplest form that I could to help you understand it. But the goal is peace, so that you can hear yourself think. But when these senses are at capacity, are overloaded and overburdened, and you're unaware of that spiritual fortitude that's on the inside of you, you obviously can't access it if you're unaware of it. So this conversation was not so much about a spiritual lesson as it was of a way for us to begin to have certain conversations and to lessen the burden. Because you already have on the inside of you, every last one of us on the inside of us, we already have a burden bearer, someone who can take the load for us. But if you don't know that, for the sheer idea that you've never been told that before, or if you don't know that because you just simply don't care, or it feels like hocus pocus to you, or whatever the case might be, either way, you're burdened down with life. So this conversation was more about showing you that there's a way to offload the burden that you're carrying, so that you can come to a place where you are not burdening yourself with the pressures of this world. Things that are completely out of your control, especially for us as men. This conversation was for us and the women who love us, if you're listening in. And that there's the world has created a burden for us to bear. And the only way that we can get out from under that burden is to trust the God on the inside of us to carry that burden for us, or to offload that burden for us, so that we can continue mission forward. But without it, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, higher power, that's to each his own. I'm not here to give you a Bible study or anything like that. That's to each his own. But the power is on the inside of you, man. And sure, it absolutely helps to be able to talk with someone, to get these things off of your chest. Absolutely. I read the stats to you earlier. The alarming stats. 24, it says... It says 20% of American men, roughly 24.6 million individuals, experience mental health conditions each year, and about 10% dealing with depression or anxiety specifically. And it goes on to say further that 75 to 80% of all men offing themselves, or where people are offing themselves, taking their lives, 70-80% of all these deaths are coming from men. They're coming from men. So now this conversation was not again, it's not about me knowing it all, but it's about me being heartbroken for the women who have lost their lives due to these unfortunate situations. Me being moved, me being compelled to not just sit around and not do something, or at least do my part in it, but being compelled enough to go on air and say, hey, I want to talk about this. That's what this conversation was about. Not trying to flex or anything like that, but genuine compassion for the women who have lost their lives, genuine compassion for the men who have taken their lives, genuine compassion for the men who are trying to sort the things out in their head, who don't feel like they have anyone to talk to. Just genuine compassion. I'm a man just like all the other men out there. In some cases, I've been in some of the situations as well, and worse at times. I've had certain thoughts as well. So I know what it feels like. But until we as men begin to question certain things, and even to take a deeper dive under spirituality, to question certain things, and to come to a place and find out that you already have everything that you need. You already have everything that you need. And I know it could sound so simple, and some of you may not even know what I'm talking about. That's why it's so important for us as men to start talking, have these conversations. Screw being embarrassed anymore. Most of us have families, wives. Someone loves us, even when society tells us different. There are some things for us as men that we're going to have to do the work. We're going to have to do the inner work that needs to be done. Because we've been carrying a load way too long. We've been carrying this load way too long to continue having excuse after excuse. At some point, we have to be compelled to do the work and fix ourselves. Because when we fix ourselves, we can share that information with our spouse and begin to do the work within our own household. Because as long as we are, as men, are broken, it doesn't mean that we can't be fixed. And I know for us as men, we don't like to hear that, broken and being fixed, and that's okay too. But it is time for us to call a spade a spade. See the thing for what it is. Because here's yet another uncomfortable truth. If we cannot see the thing for what it is, it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, we can't fix something that doesn't exist. So we have to be prepared to do the work. We have to be prepared to see ourselves in a relationship that is full of contentment. I don't even like the word happy, but nevertheless, and the reason why I don't like it, the word happy, because it changes, but contentment is contentment. So whether you have plenty or whether you have a little, I've learned how to be content. I've learned how to see the thing for what it is. It does not mean that we don't aspire to have more, but I've learned to be content with what I have and build from there. So I want to admonish us as men to do the work, do the necessary work. If that means reaching out to myself as a executive coach, do that. Do the necessary work. Oftentimes for us as men, trust is a huge issue, a huge piece for us, and myself included. For us as men, we don't always trust so easy. I get it. I absolutely get it. But the alternative is that we remain in the dark. The alternative is that we remain in the dark, trying to find ourselves, figure out where we're at in the dark. And yet, someone else already has the answer that you're looking for. Perhaps your brother, perhaps your neighbor, perhaps a good friend of yours you neglected to talk to, or you haven't talked to for a long period of time. So until us as men, until we can take that outward conversation to the inside and begin to talk about some things which the God that's on the inside is loving and caring and all of those good things that we need, until we begin to take that conversation on the inside and trust the God is going to make the crooked path straight. Trust that he's going to remove the chaos and give us more clarity, give us understanding. Until then, we'll always be at odds with ourselves, that internal fight that feels like it has no beginning, feels like it's just showed up, will be perpetually in that place of dealing with that internal fight. When in fact, in most cases, we just need to be able to offload it, to trust someone with that conversation, to get that thing off our chest. It may not mean that it's going to change overnight, but we can find a resting place for it. That's the goal here, is to put the rest, the burden that the world has been placing on us. Give that burden unto God, the God that's on the inside of you. The God that the world has been trying to detract you from is to keep us busy, to keep us occupied about the minimal things that don't even matter. About your status, about this and about that. At the end of the day, it carries no intrinsic value. It's empty calories. No nutritional value whatsoever. Just kind of runs through you. You're not going to get full on it. But what you will do in most cases is continue bickering about the things that don't matter. And then bringing all these other people and situations in on the story that at the end of the day, they were just used to keep you distracted from building a relationship with the God on the inside, keeping you distracted from having that conversation, keeping you distracted from even inquiring about who is God. As my brother Wayne said earlier, keeping us distracted from the very three questions: who am I? What is my purpose? And where am I going? Or where did I come from? Keeping us distracted from those things. Flooding this world, the schools, with the wrong information. And the wrong information in itself may sound right from the beginning because it's coming from what we may deem as reputable sources. But at some point along the way, as we are continuing to do life, our body tells us, our mind tells us that, wait a minute, something is not right. I believe this for, or at least I was told this for an extended amount of time, but something doesn't feel right. The story doesn't sound right. And if you take that information and begin to build on that, begin to seek after that something that doesn't quite feel right, doesn't sound right, you'll find what you're looking for. You'll uncover some things that need to be uncovered. You'll uncover a lot of the lies that we have all been told. And so that wrong information in itself is pressure for the body. Because you can find yourself beating against something and the door is not opening because you have the wrong information. And the wrong information has been given purposely to have us going in circles, to have us stuck right here in the realm of touch, taste, hear, seeing, smell, those five senses, that primary space where we're off on each other, destroying ourselves, destroying other people, other people's property, destroying our relationships. So eventually it's just a big circle. And eventually, or at least at some point, though God exists, he's been left out. He's been left out of the conversation because their goal was to keep you busy, keep you occupied so that you don't know that there's a God. So that you don't know that there is someone who has your best interest. It took me a long time to understand this. And these are just some uncomfortable truths that we have to be willing to face, ladies and gentlemen. These are some uncomfortable truths. Things are not just showing up in life just because they have nothing else to do. They're showing up in life under the perfect timing. Because when things have been left unattended for an extended period of time, they don't get better. They get worse. So I hope this information is going to, has been a blessing to you. Again, for me, I was sharing this information under the guise of just being compelled in lieu of different things that have taken place within the news. And I do understand for us as men that the load is heavy. The load is heavy, and I know my voice is calm, as a lot of people say, but it's not always calm. And I too have my challenges as well. I'm not out of the I'm not out of the woods yet myself. But when you understand the workings of this, and this is again primary reason I wanted to share this with you, when you understand the workings of how the system has been set up, the system of networks have been set up purposely to keep you and I distracted. Every last one of us. Black, brown, white, purple, green, polka dot, doesn't matter. It's been done purposely to keep you and I occupied, even if they have to use religion. It's been done purposely to keep us occupied, to keep us busy, going after the wrong thing, stuck in a place right here. And eventually, as I mentioned earlier, this is at capacity. This is at capacity. The mind is breaking down. And when the mind breaks down, the systems begin to break down. The body is now deficient of its vital nutrients. Disease sets in, and I know it's not a pretty picture, but the reality of it is that sometimes we need to see it for what it is, man. We need to step out of the illusion that the world has been trying to present to us and to see things as they are. And then can we turn it around? But as long as we are caught up in the illusion that you're going to build and create this space and all of that you need from this realm here, you're not. You're not. You're going in the circle. And at some point, we become the sacrifice. We either sacrifice others for the sake of our disappointment because we're at capacity dealing with that primary realm. We'll either sacrifice others, ourselves, our marriages, great relationships, because we're at capacity. It's not meant for you to handle it all. Was not meant for you to handle it all. And this is regardless of your background, your color, your nationality, ethnicity. But nevertheless, it has nothing to do with it. But it does have to do with it. You being able to access that space. And when you access that space, you'll find a kingdom, an entire kingdom on the inside. And that's at your beck and call. An entire kingdom. So that being said, guys, I see that there weren't a lot of questions. A few of you have showed up on Substack, so I do appreciate that. And I do apologize for the confusion, guys. There are 4 of you over here on Substack, so thank you. Preston, William, Rochelle, you can call me Bill. Thank you, man, for joining over here. And Coach Carrie Willis, thank you. And also thank you, Linda Meyer, over on Substack as well. Thank you all. And hi to you, Linda. And my good friend, good buddy over on Facebook. He's been watching on Facebook. I'm not sure if there's anyone over on YouTube. I don't think there is, but nevertheless, good. My good buddy Wayne over on Facebook. Thank you, brother. And I do apologize for the comments not being able to, you not being able to comment over on Facebook. Definitely would have loved to see those comments as well. So I'll get things in order here. So again, thank you all for being part of this broadcast. And for the men who are watching and for the women who love us, make sure you share this broadcast out here. And I'm going to put a link on the screen here. So if you have a man in your household, or you know of a man who's interested in connecting with me, making connections on a much deeper level, so that we can, again, have a place, find that place where we can offload those burdens. And that's the name of the game. When we're not offloading those burdens, the burden becomes too heavy for us to carry. We're at capacity. The body begins to break down. And when the body begins to break down, it can be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to recover sometimes, because at that point, because most of us, if not all of us, have been under pressure for so long, it then becomes an act of our own will to say, hey, you know what? I don't know if I have enough courage to put the work in to come out of this thing, because naturally it will be up to you and I to say, or to make that decision to say, hey, I'm going to give this one more try. So if that is you, as a man, reach out to me. Again, for the women who are watching, if you know of a man, a husband, a significant other who can definitely use this help, look at the link on the screen there. Visit the link there, bit.ly free 30-minute coaching. It is an opportunity for the man in your life, or men who are watching, to connect with me, and let's see if we can work together, guys. I would love to share this wisdom with you if you're not aware of it, and to dive deep into some things and help you offload some of the challenges that you may be dealing with, and that you can become the man that you are desiring to become, not only for yourself, but for you and your family, and you can show up as you were intended to show up. So that being said, guys, we're going to say good night, and we'll say ciao for now. We'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.